Welcome back to Echo Ridge and another episode here in our Captain of Industry series, where we will finally be finishing the tutorial today. But first, we have a problem. If you notice over here in our inventory, our copper situation has gotten pretty dire. Well, everything's working correctly over at our blast furnace. The problem is our input of copper ore. For one, the dig site is a good distance away, but for two was where we were digging. Notice these trucks are getting a bunch of rock and dirt right now, and that's because we're trying to dig our way to these copper ore veins here. If I would just have them dig over here, we'd get quicker access to the copper that's sitting there. What I could do, though, is sort of trim back where we are mining. Something like this until our copper ore situation gets figured out, until we get a lot more of that copper ore backstocked and we don't have to worry about. Which reminds me of something that I wanted to do with our iron and our copper. Right now, our ore sorting facility can only hold 240 copper ore. So it doesn't give us a whole lot of buffer if we end up running into some mining that is nothing but rock and dirt. So what we're going to do is add some loose storage here. I'm going to set it up right there and then connect the copper output to the loose storage. We can tell the copper ore output is in zone A due to these symbols here, and you'll notice that copper ore is in port A. You can also, if you look closely, see the symbols above the ports themselves. I'm also going to do it with yield iron ore, except iron ore is not in A. Dirt is, probably because our first dig was dirt. It is in B, so we will line up B. Next up is going to be big power. You'll notice that our power demand is at 1.10 megawatts out of 1.6 being provided by 2 diesel generators. And as buildings turn on, I've seen it almost max out. So it's about this time when you want to start getting into coal power. Now, the first thing to notice is we're going to be building a boiler, which is going to require access to water. We already have a groundwater pump over here, but after we build that boiler, it's going to require access to coal, which is way over here. So I think I'd rather build it in this area. And lucky for us, we have another source of groundwater right here. I do need to start with some flat terrain, so I think this area here will do well. I have my tree excavators trying to get rid of all of this, but we're not using a lot of wood, so it's taking them a little bit longer. I suppose we will just build another groundwater pump right here, paying attention to where the water is coming out from. I'm going to put as back far as possible because I know how much this build takes in space. Connect it with some pipes coming out of there, and that should do nicely. And next up, under power production is going to be the boiler. You can see that the boiler has a lot of inputs and outputs, and this for sure gets pretty complicated pretty quickly, and it took me a while to figure out a few days ago when I built it for the first time, so I'm hoping to be able to help you and prevent any issues in the future. So I will build the boiler right there, and then we'll just wait for a few minutes for the construction trucks. And here they come now. Way to go, fellas! With our boiler in, we need to make sure that trucks are bringing coal to it. And since it requires so much coal at a clip, it's a good idea to add a loose storage, and the tutorial sort of demands it. So there's our coal input there. So I can have the loose storage building, say, right here. It won't be the cleanest of all conveyor runs, but it's not too shabby. This will be a U-shaped conveyor, and boom, right in there. In the loose storage itself, we're going to say, hey, bring us some coal, and I'm going to tell the trucks I want there always to be at least 160 coal in here. I am also going to make sure that this area here gets cleaned out of all the trees. They are our natural enemy after all. Don't worry, we'll be able to plant trees in the future. So now in our boiler, we have water and coal, and it's outputting high pressure steam and exhaust, except we have not done anything with that exhaust, so in goes a smokestack. In goes a correctly placed smokestack. And with that pipe in, our next step is what are we going to do with this high pressure steam? Well, the tutorial here says build a high pressure turbine and attach a power generators to it, 2 of them, and then connect the high pressure steam pipes from the boiler. So if we go into our power production, here's our 1 high pressure turbine. And when we zoom in on it, you can see there's a few different steam indicators. Well, the little cloud with the 3 lines on it is the high pressure. The one with the 2 lines is only low pressure steam. So I'm going to put this probably about here. And then I'm going to connect a couple of power generators side by side, connect our pipe. And according to the tutorial, that's all we'll have to do. Oh, but wait, there's more. Despite the tutorial being finished, notice that our output is full, and that is of our low pressure steam. And that's because you have to be able to exhaust that low pressure steam, and in this case we will use another smokestack. You could take pipes and run them all the way back to this smokestack, but I don't think that looks as clean. So I'm going to put it right there, grab our pipe, it automatically builds the elevation in, and our smokestack will help us out. And now we're generating a lot more power than we were with our diesel generators. One quick note about having different sources of power in your industrial complex is if we click on one of the power generators, you can see that there's a production priority and it's currently set at 6. But if we click on our diesel generators, you can see it has a power production priority, and if we set it higher than our coal power, now the diesel generators will start running and our turbines will stop. In this case though, we have plenty of coal and those generators provide a lot more power, so I'm going to keep our diesel generators on 11. Suppose the priority here is on 11 too by default. Nope, 10. So while this priority on the diesel generator is just for sort of maintenance, this one is the production priority where the electricity is going. Next up on the turbines though is notice that they are generating, or have the capacity to generate, 6 megawatts worth of power. That lines up with the tutorial recommending that we build 2 power generators because they can each use 3. But if we look at our boiler, we can see that it has the potential to produce 48 units of high pressure steam, but one power generator only needs 24. So we can actually double up on the amount of power generators, and then making sure we provide an input right here. Remember, we also need to exhaust that low pressure steam. So we have 2 options because we're not even close to hitting the max capacity of the smokestack. We could tie this into that smokestack, but I think it looks kind of cool to have a separate smokestack right there. And now with everything complete, we have the potential to be able to produce double the amount of power. But you can tell we don't have even close to the amount of demand because 3 out of the 4 power generators aren't even moving. Additionally, something else to keep in mind is the fact that the high pressure turbines take 50 construction parts too. The power generators require 20 electronics and 20 construction parts too. And due to our shortage in copper because of the mining fiasco, we ran out of electronics. So our ability to perform maintenance tanked pretty heavily. Because remember, maintenance requires electronics, electronics requires copper. Well, we've sort of put a stopgap measure into place by doing a trade with a village and grabbing some copper for construction parts. Eventually, we will be right-sized. I also added another excavator and a pair of pickup trucks, and with some modifications on what we're mining so that we can get better access to that sweet copper, we should be back on our feet here shortly. But there's something else we can do to this setup here. If we go over to our power production, there's a new building called a flywheel. Now it is expensive at 40 construction parts too, but what the flywheel does is stores all of that mechanical energy as power. The way I sort of think about it is because these are so much larger than our power generators, that when we're not needing as much power, we're going to be spinning these and they will be able to continue spinning even if we're not providing more steam to from the boiler to the power generators. And if we click on the power generators, you can see we've accumulated all of that power in the form of inertia, which the game, if you dig down into the tutorials, basically says helps make the whole power system a little bit more efficient by compensating for the spin up and spin down of each individual power generator. So while the tutorial does not tell you to do it, if you've got the spare construction parts too hanging around, you should probably put it in. Whew! Well, that is enough on coal power, huh? Let's go work on advanced diesel. Here is our existing diesel setup, where we have a basic distiller turning crude oil and coal into diesel, wastewater, and exhaust. But over here in our crude oil refining menu, which we can thin down by clicking distillation, we have now access to a distillation stage 1 and stage 2, where we're going to be taking crude oil and steam and turning it into medium oil, heavy oil, and sour water. Step 1 is going to be distillation stage 1. Trying to figure out the best way to spin this based on our requirements. I think this is probably a good spot right here. I will add stage 2 right here. Notice it's only taking heavy oil. We'll put it right here. I'm of course going to need a boiler to be able to create that steam. I will line up the boiler, say right here. And right now we have our 3 buildings in. It's going to take a little bit for them to build them because once again, 70 construction parts 2 plus 50 plus another 40 for the boiler. And every single bit of construction parts 2 takes electronics. Luckily, we had our warehouse filled with construction parts 2, so construction shouldn't take too long. So after a short bit, some of the buildings are already in. Now, as we know from before, we're going to need a source of water for our boiler. It requires 48 water every 60 seconds. Ergo, your rain harvesters aren't going to be enough. So we're going to need access to a groundwater pump, and we have a few options for that. We could tie in with the groundwater pump way over here, or I could just build another one that's a little bit closer. The groundwater pump does require 120 kilowatts and 2 workers, and that sweet maintenance that we're short on right now. But you'll notice if we click on the groundwater pump, it only produces 48 water every 60 seconds, which is the amount a boiler requires. Now somehow trucks are dropping off water, but that is not sustainable. And they're doing that right now because of the setting, trucks import only if belts and pipes can't. The other options I would have is to tie in with the groundwater pump over here and send a massive pipe over through here. But I don't think I want to do that either. So in goes another groundwater pump. We will put it right here. And then I'm going to take a pipe and see how ugly this run is. In fact, why don't I start the run from the boiler? And since this is going to go such a long distance, I'm going to make this pipe as tall as we can. That way all of our current vehicles can get around. I mean, and it's even sexy enough to go right over buildings too. We'll build that one. You know, this run would be a lot better if my tree excavators would do their job. Luckily, it doesn't look like any trees are in the way yet. And I'm going to hold shift to help keep this run as clean as possible. Oh, this is going to work out nicely. And after some finagling, I think we have a decent connection right here. Trying to line it up as nice as possible. And there we go. That's going to require way too many construction parts. And quite frankly, looks like an eyesore, but it's about time for a little bit of spaghetti, I suppose. Now that we have that going in, I can start connecting this run. High pressure steam goes into distiller 1. I will need a smokestack here. I need my medium oil, not heavy oil, to go into distiller 2 and some steam. So I can grab that steam from right here. And it goes. I need my crude oil input to distiller 1. And now we have outputs for light oil, heavy oil, and our diesel. And because this thing produces so much diesel, 36 every 60 seconds, I'm going to put a few fluid storages in. I think we're also going to move this setup and disassemble a lot of it. So I think something like this is going to work out well. I'll put in 3 of them. That looks kind of cool. But I need to make sure that trucks are not going to import cargo. And then we connect our diesel input. Look at this. It's coming together so cleanly. Now we just have to deal with our other exports, the light oil, the heavy oil, and the sour water. Now the sour water is producing 18 every 60 seconds. It's basically a truck full every minute. So this might be a case that you do send the pipe all the way over to the liquid dump. But for now, I'm just going to say, hey, you can also drop off sour water here. And as for the heavy oil and the light oil, you're going to love this. We are putting in some flares. Now you don't have to use 2 flares, but they only require 10 standard construction parts each. So we're going to connect one there and one there. Building all that has drained our construction parts 1. But I think I'm going to double up on how many construction parts we can create by just adding another building and connecting its conveyor. And after a short while, look how beautiful it is. Now, while this process does give us a lot more resources, such as medium oil, heavy oil, light oil, that I'm sure one day we will find something to do with, it's also just creating diesel a lot quicker than the standard basic distiller. But don't think that it's not taking any coal at all. In fact, the basic distiller was requiring 6 coal for 27 diesel. Our boiler requires 30 coal and it ends up with 36 diesel after the process using the standard time of 60 seconds. But that process will even become more efficient once we figure out what we're going to do with all the heavy and light oil. But we definitely don't need both of these processes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use our handy dandy Control C, highlight all of this, and just connect it to our diesel storage. I'm also going to mark all this for deconstruction so we can use those same parts. They're going to have to move all that rubber storage once they finish building another storage for it. And then the last thing I want to do as they're deconstructing that is notice that the input for the distiller can take up to 60 crude oil, but each oil pump only produces 20. So yeah, it'll cost us a little bit more manpower and electricity. The juice will definitely be worth the squeeze there. Doesn't that look amazing? We've fully upgraded all of our diesel production. Well, so long as our oil reserves last, if we click on a pump, we can see that we have about 52,000 barrels left before this oil patch runs out. Now, granted, there are others on the island. Here's one here. I suppose that's the last one. Oh no, there's one on this island over here. The tutorial wants us now to set up offshore rigging. You may have remembered when we discovered our oil rig over here, well, we can repair it for 120 parts. So we will start that repair. They will load 120 of the construction parts too onto the ship. In fact, while I'm doing that, we're also going to load up the materials needed to repair the cargo ship, because once we do, we get access to that cargo ship. Then all we have to do is deliver the cargo. Our ship takes off. Good luck, fair winds. And once the ship gets there, it starts rebuilding the oil rig. And then we'll do the same by dropping off all the iron and repairing the cargo ship. During that process, I've noticed that we're starting to have a lack of coal. I did expand the mining, but it may also be a part of the fact that just one excavator is not going to be enough to keep up with the demand. So I think it's about time to add a second excavator and a couple pickups for our coal mine. It'll also catch up now that we've filled our diesel storage. Everything will start backing up to include the boiler, not requesting as much coal. We're also starting to get wide-scale maintenance issues, and it was due to not having enough coal. So the copper and the iron blast furnaces weren't running, but we're slowly starting to get back on track with the aforementioned additional excavator at the coal mine. This is going to take a few minutes to fix up. It's never good when your maintenance plummets down to zero, but we're slowly getting back up there. It also looks like the maintenance is having a shortage on mechanical parts, which makes sense because our mechanical parts are at zero and they require more iron plate. Let's double the amount of mechanical parts, shall we? Hopefully this doesn't exasperate the issue. There we go. That's looking a little bit better. I think I'm also going to add coal loose storage on each of our blast furnaces. Since they only can hold 40, but they use 12 per batch. Let's say that we will turn off the export and then say keep at least 100. No, not slag. Oh, I copied the wrong thing. No, not slag. There we go. Coal and keep full if under 100. Nice little U-shaped connector right into there. Make sure that trucks cannot export the coal once it's in there. There we go. That looks a lot better. Now when we look at the blast furnace, you can see that it's kept consistently full. Beautiful. I can also do the same thing, but for the iron ore, and connect it just like that. And that should help keep iron production and copper production going a lot better, especially when we eventually get access to the bigger trucks that can drop off more of the ore at once. After a short period of time, maintenance is now, well, getting back up to snuff. We still have a little bit of ways to go with the iron. I'm holding off on the materials needed to repair the cargo ship, but I'm also spending a little bit of time with my newest research, and that's level designation. This is going to be our sort of seafront. Hopefully it works with this shipyard and everything will be lined in nice and tight. If not, I got a little bit of a ways to go, but we can always rebuild that shipyard. All it took was a mine control tower sitting right here. And I'm going to try to get that nice straight seaport looking area. Eventually I will come over here and get retaining walls and we'll make it look really nice. But for now, I don't want to queue up any more research until everything is right sized on our industrial complex. In preparation for that cargo ship being fixed is I need to put in the cargo depot, which is another reason why I'm trying to dump some more stuff in here, because Right now, there's not a whole lot of space to put it. I suppose I can put it here temporarily, just to be able to finish off the tutorial. Yeah, let's put it there. I'll add a couple of fluid modules, easy peasy. We finally have enough iron plates to be able to go repair our damaged cargo ship, so I will send the ship off to do that. It took building another iron smelting facility, which was pretty easy with the Control-C button, and you just put another one down just like that. Now iron's quickly going back up. Copper's been pretty restored. I added a warehouse for it. Things are starting to look a little bit better again. Why is concrete down so low? No, it's not raining right now. I suppose I can fix that problem by getting rid of the rainwater collection thingy and tapping into our groundwater line. This is how the spaghetti starts. Don't worry, we'll fix it later, I'm sure. Here we go, and now our concrete production will no longer require it to rain. And it doesn't look too bad, right? And I'm even going to make this process a little bit better by taking another U-shaped conveyor and plugging it right into the concrete factory. Unfortunately, trucks are going to have to go around because they will not be able to go over that conveyor rail, at least until I get some wonderful ramps. Okay, I guess we'll queue those up. Watching the limestone come out of there is just so therapeutic. Something about conveyor belts and assembly lines. This is a small ramp? My goodness. What does a large ramp look like? Oh, you can have more stuff going under it. We'll stick to the small ramp. That's how you know it's temporary. When you start putting ramps in over your temporary conveyor lines. Of course, now that I'm looking at it, no one's using my ramp. Because we have the conveyor line there. Oh, there's somebody used my ramp. There's not really any transportation that needs to happen from over here to over here anymore. Alright, we're gonna get rid of this thing. It was nice for a little while. Now that we've repaired our cargo ship, it comes in docks. Now the reason why it looks so small and dinky, no, it's not just because it's cold out, is because our cargo depot is only this size. The larger you make your cargo depot, the larger your cargo ship will end up being. In this case, we wanted to go grab some crude oil from the oil rig. The oil rig is ready and has a lot of oil in reserve. All we have to do is get it to bake some. So we unpause it, and then we just click the load cargo button. Well, if I had enough workers to be able to man the cargo ship, that would definitely help. Back to the beacon. Do you see what a vicious cycle this is? We'll eventually get more people on the island, but for now, our cargo ship, I suppose we gotta figure out a name for it. Let me know your suggestions in the comments below. Otherwise, all the ships are just gonna be something like Echo's ship for oil. We're also out of housing all of a sudden, so I better add a couple more of these. I'm hoping that'll be enough potatoes, right? Our wonderful cargo ship has returned, and since we have fluid modules on the cargo bays, it will siphon all the oil out. And there we have it. From what I understand, that is the last tutorial mission, and it only brought us to about here on the research tree. Look, our industrial complex is somewhat of a dumpster fire, but it's a nice dumpster fire. It's self-contained. The world and the research tree is now our oyster for us to discover a lot more elements, buildings, and who knows what else. I hope you enjoyed this series so far. Our next video will just be plinking away at the research tree. Let me know what you think we should be heading towards, because right now I have no clue. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.